Welcome, everybody, to the Advanced Selling Podcast, the longest-running sales training podcast in the history of podcasts. My name is Bryan and Bill.
My name is Bill Caskey.
Reporting to you live from the bunker. It looks like I'm in a bunker. I just went for a walk.
Yeah, you're
a little scrubbed out today, Bill.
It's like mugshotty. It's a little mugshotty.
A little bit. I have my Bob Evans hat. This, you know how you have something in life that you purchase for a very low dollar amount that just lasts forever?
It fits. Yeah.
I bought this hat. I was at an event. And I had to be outside for like 8 hours and it was pouring rain. I had no hat and I was having breakfast at Bob Evans. They had these hats for sale for $9.99 in Baltimore, Maryland. I bought this hat 14 years ago.
Wow.
And it is just fantastic. So I went for a walk and then came home. So yeah, I look a little rough right now. So I say
rough around the edges. We like rough. Raw. I think let's call it raw.
And raw is good. And then then I moved studios. Not in my main studio, at home, and had a little trouble with my Rodecaster this morning. That's one of the recording devices that Bill and I, in our 17 and a half years, have earned the right to use good equipment in the field. And it's been the death of me lately to get this thing to turn on. And it's been rough, Bill.
So the Rodecaster, for those that aren't familiar, is a digital audio board, we'll call it, that you can plug microphones, your phone, you can throw music into it. It's really a good low cost, and it's very low cost compared to other digital boards. Yeah. And I think the quality is reflective of that. I mean, it's okay, it's good, but it's not a $5,000 digital audio board, nor do we need one.
Right.
But there are some things that go wrong occasionally, and you had some problems this morning, and it reminded me of I get notified sometimes when there's a Clubhouse room that they think I might like. And I'm not on Clubhouse at all. I mean, I don't spend any time on it.
Clubhouse being the audio room app that people can go in.
That's correct. Yeah. Clubhouse, the audio room. And it got a lot of fire and it was, pretty wild there for a while, but
yeah.
And for some reason, the only room I get invited to is a Rodecaster room.
Oh,
so apparently I attended one once and was fond of it, and it detected my fondness, and so I was on the other night because I was trying to figure out a way to pump music through the Rodecaster onto Zoom calls. Okay. So if you're on a Zoom call and you're waiting for people to show up, it's nice to have music.
Yeah.
And so I brought that up, but the problem was I had to sit through a question from a dude that was a 20-minute answer, and it was so in the weeds. And yet I enjoyed it. It was so in the weeds. It's like, well, what's your reverb? Well, is the scale personator back to the 3 or is it still up to 2? I'm looking at mine like, oh, I got problems here. So,
it's
anyway,
funny.
It kind of reminded me of, we went to see a Fleetwood Mac cover band this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Rumors out of Atlanta, and it was really good. I'm
a
huge Fleetwood Mac fan, but I like their music. But these guys were really good, and there was one of their members, Jimmy. This was his last night. He'd been with this cover band or tribute band, I guess it's called, for 10 years or 8 years, and he decided to leave, and so there was a lot of tears and there was a lot of cheering for Jimmy. I told Jay on the way out, I said, I didn't know who Jimmy was. Now I'm so sad he's leaving.
You're gonna miss Jimmy.
I'm gonna miss him. I mean, I didn't know he existed 2 hours ago.
We're gonna miss Jimmy. We're gonna back, Bill. I'm just gonna go on a limb here. I'm gonna dedicate this episode to Jimmy. Fleetwood Mac rumors. Jimmy, this episode advanced.
Don't do this to me, Brian. I'm choking up here right now.
Overclimped. I love that word. Oh, that's funny.
All right. Topic. Let's get to work here. Come on.
Okay. So we intentionally didn't. Bill's like, do you want to tell me the topic? I'm like, I don't. Here's what I want to talk about, Bill. So at the end the first quarter has ended. And one of the things that I like to do with all of my clients, and whether it doesn't matter if they're in a leadership peer group or they're a salesperson or if they're brand new with us or they've been with us for 20 years, I always poll the audience in my first meeting with them after the first quarter ends. And I ask them to give me their, just as close as they can, however they track it, their numeric performance score based on their goal. And what I try to do is just get a gauge for how the ether is in the marketplace. Because both you and I work with clients in all sorts of markets. We're all over the board. So it actually gives us a really cool little snapshot of what the economy is like. And we have leading indicator clients like in manufacturing. So I do that. So my like back of the napkin math has told me that about 70% of companies have hit their goal or just missed. Like they're most of them have just missed. They're in that 90, 80%, just below. And then a small sliver have gone ahead, and then another small sliver have completely tanked. That's not what this is about. Regardless of those numbers, I'm like, you know what? Not okay. Like everyone's like, okay. There, in my opinion, though, after those numbers, though, even though they're okay, there seems to be a funk in the air. I am sensing a general energetic funk in the business air, in the sales world. And I wanted to see, one, if you're observing that, and two, if you're a listener here and you're feeling the funk, what to do about it. And I'm feeling it, and I'll say a couple different ways, and I want to turn it over to you. So the ways I'm feeling it with the leadership teams starting to apply pressure and stress both to themselves and to their teams in non-constructive ways. They're starting to freak out, lose their minds a little bit, behave in ways that are not constructive, not aspirational, undue pressure, lacking objectivity, things like that. That's the leadership version I'm seeing. I'm seeing the sales teams start to create massive excuses, lose objectivity, almost get real defensive on deals and things like that. I'm seeing that more than I've seen that in the last 2 years. And it's not a good energy. So that's the topic I wanted to bring to you today, is the funk in the sales ether.
The funk in the ether.
Funk in the ether.
That's the title. Travis,
dedicated to Jimmy. The funk in the ether. Dedicated to Jimmy. That's the topic.
Grand Funk Railroad tribute band is coming, so I'll make sure. Maybe Jimmy. Maybe he's jumped course. He's a bass player.
That's another pet peeve of mine.
What's that?
Well, it's a tangent.
Okay, let's do it next time. We'll do it next time.
Remind me, will you?
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I have felt it for a while. I have felt that our clients feel it for a while, and I wasn't sure whether it was just, start a new year and the goals will go up, and there is this an election year, and I think there's a lot of stress and a lot of like, what's going to happen, and there's wars and there's all sorts of stuff, but the locus of control to me still has to get back to we humans, we individuals, and we can't control the market. We can't even control market demand. I mean, we can control our behavior in the market to create demand, but we can't control market demand. So I think you're right. I've noticed that some of my LinkedIn lives, I get questions like, what's your view of the economy? And I can tell it comes from a place of kind of uncertainty and what's going to happen if I do think we're in for a correction. I just don't see how you can continue to have prices go up. And I know the inflation's come down, but it came down because everything was up 25%. Yeah. I don't see how you can pump that much money into the market and money supply and not have inflation. And I can't see how that inflation doesn't have impact long term. I don't see how it can't.
I just had that conversation with the CEO, who's got a lot of his business is an engineering firm in the automotive space, and just got hit pretty hard with some, they're kind of consumer demand driven, had some bad news on the interest rate front. Inflation took a unpredicted turn that kind of stops things. And here comes the trickle. All of a sudden orders tail off and freak out mode. So I think for our listeners, what I wanted to talk about was, the sort of what advice for them or what that handled. Yeah. The thing that I'm really stump speeching on a bit, and you said it, this the human thing. You've got to you've got to get out of this cloud of any of this stuff. You got to put earmuffs on. And I think people can be overly susceptible to all this news and this stuff they have no control over whatsoever. And there's two versions of it. One is the victim mentality that I think some people They go, well, Bill, Bryan, there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. I mean, the people aren't buying. There's nothing I can do. And I wonder when people say that, like, if I played the tape, like I recorded them saying that, played it back, like, do they like look at that in themselves and go, yeah, that's it? Or
you've done everything. You've done everything you can imagine, and nothing moves the needle. Everything you've thrown all against the wall. Yeah, is that what you're telling me?
Advice you'd give to your kid? Yeah, when your kid comes, it's like, Dad, I've done. There's nothing I can do. I know, son. Go crawl in bed and suck your thumb. I know. There's nothing you can do.
It's hopeless. It's hopeless.
Jimmy, he tried to put my slide into the list, and they wouldn't let him. There's nothing.
I'm fine.
He's playing with
they put a happy face on it. He was going to go spend time with his family. Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah, sure. I love this episode. Anyway,
I agree, Bryan. I think that good times or bad or unknown, I think we just have to keep getting back to what is our behavior. I wrote a thing down here that I wrote down the other day, and I forgot to use it, and you prompted me. Old thinking does not lead to new results. Old thinking leads to old results.
Yep.
If you're happy with the old results, then keep thinking old. Keep thinking in that old way that we used to think of in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, where we were, if you want to think really old, go start faxing people. See how that works for you. You can make cold calls. That's an old, antiquated method of prospecting. It's not that it doesn't work. It's that I don't want to put all my eggs in that basket.
Yes.
So if you're looking at the results and you're not getting the results you want, recognize that somebody across town in, the metaphor of across town, some other competitor is doing the things we're talking about doing, and they're going to eat your lunch.
Yes.
I'm sorry. I hate to say that because I love our listeners, and a lot of you listeners are eating someone else's lunch to keep the metaphor alive.
Thank you.
But someone else across town is shooting video every day. They're running panel discussions with prospects and customers and other vendors. They're partnering up with other strategic-minded people who are calling on your client that are they're complementary but not complementary but not competitive. They're doing all those things, and you're sitting back. And again, I'm not talking about any person because someone's going to take offense to this. You're sitting back and saying, "Man, we just got to make more freaking cold calls." I'm sorry. It's just not a way to scale your business. It's just, you can't do it.
I know.
And then we say the market's not right. No, we weren't right 6 months ago. We stopped doing the things we needed to do. And now the market's not right. It has nothing to do with the market.
Thank you. And that's what's happened. What has happened is we haven't done things in the past, and now we're seeing that. And then we're saying there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do. It's because of what you did is why you feel like there's nothing. And so now you can decide you can continue to do the same thing, keep having this happen, or you can say, you know what, this little wake up call here. You know what I mean? So that's one thing. It's this sort of victim mentality. Then there's another element, though, that I think this is where you and I can really be helpful. Is some people don't know that they're a little bit stuck. They're open to that, but they're like, I don't know what to do. But I'm very open, and they will do things if you tell them what to do. And that's where I think, hiring a good coach or listening to a good podcast like the Advanced Selling Podcast or something like that can be helpful. And this is where you start to take inventory of some of the things that you and I have talked on the podcast a lot about that aren't, like I use a simple example like you're doing. So someone says, there's nothing I could do. I go, when's the last time you did a LinkedIn Live? They go, never.
That won't work. No.
That's what I mean. It's instant. That won't. Yeah. And I hate doing this. I do it, and I try not to be there's a balance between being like snarky, but I do this. I do it in front of them. I go, well, have you ever done this? And I'll open my laptop in front of my clients. I'll go, who are you trying to get to? They have them give me their customer. And I use my LinkedIn to go. I did it in class the other day. I sent 2 texts to my friends to get my client a meeting in front of them. I'm like, I don't even work here, you guys. I love you. I'm getting you guys meetings. It's like, but well, because then they did, that won't work. And you've got, and here comes all the excuses. Well, you've got, I'm like, because I do it. I'm teaching you. It's like, Anyway.
Yeah, but that gets back into old thinking. The old thinking is I'll just, I've got this master list here. I'll make cold calls. And your new thinking is, well, there's another way around the dam. The customer has this moat around them. Just imagine the moat. And if we keep going up to the moat and trying to swim across, we can't. But you're taking a helicopter and you're kind of parachuting in to where they are, and everybody else is still back at the moat trying to figure out how to get the gate open or swim across. Right. So I'm not all that familiar with moats, as you can probably tell, but I assume it's a castle. It's a protected area. Castle.
You probably have never seen the game Fortnite, have you?
No, I haven't. No, but I've heard of it.
Very popular.
So here's the way I think you have to think about it. If you just imagine a circle, which is the universe of prospects, and let's say out of 100 people in your market, there are 20 prospects from in the last 2 years. Now, the same 100 people, there might be 12 prospects. So the prospect base has dropped 40%, but they're still out there. And are there more people trying to generate business from those 12? Yeah, your competitors know, but maybe they don't. Maybe they've gone into hiding as well. You don't know that. Bryan, you and I have been through a couple of slowdowns. It's great for our business. It's great.
Right.
I'm almost like, I don't want to see it from my clients, but it is it's good times for us because people start to slow down. But so it's not people aren't buying. It's about fewer might be. And so you've got to be in those people's ears, in front of them, and in front of all your prospects, because it will come back. And when it comes back, you want to be ready. But yeah, I think you're right. Individual responsibility.
That's the lesson to me. You take individual responsibility for the behaviors that are new behaviors that you've not done in the past to stay ahead of this. And I promise you, listeners, if you do what Bill and I are talking about over time, you just never, I'm not saying it's easy, you just don't have to worry about the stuff. You're always staying ahead of it, and it doesn't mean you never have dips. It just means you dip in a different place and to a different level. Because you got this stuff built up. I mean, I had a question like, well, what about, let's do LinkedIn, because you're very active on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. And so we're on the older side of the demographic. So the older group would go, well, I'm in my 50s or 60s. I'm like, yeah, look at Bill Caskey. He's in his 60s. Bryan Neal's in his mid 50s. We got tens of thousands of followers on LinkedIn. Bill's live every day on LinkedIn, And then someone goes, well, what about the younger people? And I'm like, well, this guy pulled his kid up that's 5 years out of college, has 25,000 followers on LinkedIn, 5 years out of college.
Yeah.
There's no excuse.
Yeah, those are just excuses. Those are just excuses. Those are deflections of, I'm not willing to do it. Why don't you just tell me that? Just tell me that I refuse at my age, with my experience, I refuse to do it for some reason. You don't have to tell me the reason, but I refuse to do it.
Yeah.
And then we're good. Because now I'm not going to keep harping with you. I'll go find somebody else to harp with.
Because it is so much easier to say, I've done all I can do. There's nothing more I can do. It's just the market, man. It's all I can do.
Yeah. All right. Good job today. If you have not checked out the Advanced Selling Podcast Insider, go to advancedsellingpodcast.com, and there's a link there to Insider. We're doing the next one here in a couple of weeks. And also, if you have not purchased the book called 12 Bold Moves.
Look at that. Nice graphic.
12boldmoves.com. We took a look at all the things that we did on the Insider program last year, assembled them into a book report, and I think you'll find it good. It's 40 pages. It's easy reading, and there's 12 moves that I think will move the needle. So that's that.
Jimmy, we'll miss you. Cheers, Jimmy.
Bye. Okay, bye.